The clone troopers of the Grand Army of the Republic had some pretty cool toys, all told. Aside from the standard DCs, they had all sorts of chain guns, explosive weapons, and even portable blast shields to protect against blaster fire. But despite the objective coolness of this sort of stuff and its undeniable utility, we rarely saw a lot of that gear in Star Wars: The Clone Wars, nor tactics that properly incorporated it. But why was that? Why were tactics that were seemingly obvious choices so rarely used by the Republic during the Clone Wars? In this video, we're going to be answering that.
Attention, Sergeant on deck!
Let's start with the obvious, those blast shields we mentioned a moment ago. M3 Bulwark blast shields were big old chunks of plasteel that clones could strap to their arms and carry around as a defense against blaster fire. The shields featured small viewports for clones to see through and were effective against pretty much all forms of blaster fire as well as explosions and shrapnel. They were most notable for their use in the Battle of Ringo Vinda when the clones from Doom's unit used them as a defense against droideka fire. Not even droideka blaster cannons were able to burn holes through these formidable pieces of equipment. Above Ringo Vinda, Doom's men used these shields alongside Z6 rotary cannons and a little bit of Jedi telekinesis to rapidly plow through an entire droid army, complete with commando droids and droidekas. Here's the thing though, that's the only example we have of those shields being used, excluding their appearance as pieces of scenery in EA's Battlefront 2. In spite of the effectiveness of these tactics, they hadn't appeared in any Clone Wars media since. The blast shields haven't appeared again at all, and Z6 rotary cannons have gone back to being uncommon. Before we answer why, we're going to look at a similar tactical formula that the Republic rarely used, marching under the cover of a ray shield. The Separatists used this tactic a fair bit, most notably in the Battle of Christosis, but the Republic only used ray shields in a select few circumstances, all of them defensive. On some level, this makes sense, as ray shields are defensive tools, but as General Loathsome proved on Christosis, they can be used offensively as well. Consider the Second Battle of Geonosis. Wouldn't the Republic have had an easier time dealing with those super tanks if they had just copied Loathsome's strategy of marching under shield cover, waiting until you're right on top of the enemy, and blowing them away? These two tactical approaches may seem different, but they're really just the same principle applied on a larger scale, advancing under solid cover, and then opening up with heavy weapons when you get close to the enemy. As a rule, the Republic rarely used those sorts of tactics. Aside from their armor, ATTEs and other vehicles and the lightsabers of their Jedi generals, clones were usually left with a little protection from enemy fire aside from what they could find on the battlefield. Even gear we know the GAR had access to, like both aforementioned kinds of shields, were rarely used, despite their obvious utility. This is doubly strange when you consider that the Republic had a constant shortage of men and needed to keep as many of its clones alive as it could. The reason these sorts of defensive tactics were never used is simple. They weren't what the GAR was designed for. The Kaminoans intended the GAR to function according to a very specific pattern, aimed at rapid response and quick moving advances. Waves of clones and heavy walkers were supposed to get dropped onto the battlefield and immediately rush to the enemy, clearing landing zones for future gunship waves and eventually their assault ships, which would land to deploy reinforcements and heavy artillery. While this model wasn't held to as strictly in the later months of the war as it was in the beginning, the general philosophy behind it continued to underpin GAR tactics for the entire conflict. The GAR was meant to act as a lightning fast moving force intended to counter the superior numbers of its enemies by outmaneuvering them. The Jedi probably didn't help this problem. They too generally preferred to rush the enemy on the battlefield so they could get right into the action and put their lightsabers to work. This wasn't the most Jedi-like approach to warfare, to be sure, but it's what they learned worked best for them during the New Sith Wars. As we mentioned in the past, the Jedi generally tried to fight the Clone Wars with the same tactics they used against the New Sith. So this usually meant that quick offensives were the go-to for Republic forces, even in situations where they weren't optimal. And here's the thing, we don't have the exact figures for the weight of those blast shields, but just eyeballing it, they don't exactly look like they're light or easy to carry. For close quarters combat in places like the Ringo Vinda space station, this probably didn't make much of a difference, but on the battlefields the GAR often fought on, those things would have seriously slowed down Republic advances. The same is true for ray shields. As we saw on Christosis, those things advanced slowly, and it slowly just didn't cut it for the clones. The tactical advantages afforded by such shields were usually outweighed by the fact that they came at the cost of one of the GAR's primary advantages. To a degree, it's possible that this was also a factor in why the Z6 rotary cannon was rare, as were handheld rocket launchers. But it doesn't entirely explain why they were seemingly absent from many battles. To again eyeball the weight of equipment, the Z6 don't look all that heavy, at least in comparison to a backpack full of grenades, which clones were regularly seen moving just fine in. Rocket launchers were probably of similar weight, though they would have been a bit harder to handle on the go. Nonetheless, they were pretty handy weapons for clone infantry on the move, especially when the enemy had tanks around. Both, of course, would have been useful on the battlefield, and both would have fit nicely into the standard Republic tactical framework. Z6s did a marvelous job of mowing down battle droids, while rocket launchers would have been handy for taking out separatist armor on the go. In fact, a healthy supply of these weapons surely would have made frontline GAR troops even faster, since you can advance faster when your enemies are being shredded left and right. But there were actually two reasons these weapons weren't used all that frequently. Firstly, they required special training that many clones didn't have. While it was easy enough to figure out how to use a rocket launcher in a pinch, as the 501st showed on Umbara, they were very dangerous in untrained hands. Z6 rotary cannons probably worked the same way, since they were held in a much different way from most weapons and had unusual firing systems. This meant that both were usually relegated to the exclusive use of clones weapons specialists and ARC troopers. Surely though, the Kaminoans could have just trained the clones how to use them. Well, it might not have been that simple. You see, there was another issue with rocket launchers and rotary cannons. They ran out of ammo rapidly. Most rocket launchers only had a few shots before their operators would have to scrounge around for more rockets, which isn't optimal in frontline combat. As for the Z6, those rotary cannons were only good for 600 shots, just 100 more than the Republic's standard issue blaster rifles, and at a far higher rate. If the frontline troops of the Republic Assault Force were armed with Z6s, they'd be unstoppable for about 2 minutes, and then they'd have to pause to practically dismantle their weapons and replace the gas canisters. Obviously, any unit trying that would get absolutely massacred. There's also one last battlefield tactic that we rarely got to see the Republic employ: sniper fire. The Republic had trained snipers, both in elite commando squads and in standard clone units. But they weren't seen much at all. This is especially puzzling since the DC-15A blaster rifle, the primary weapon used by the troopers of the GAR, had a range of several kilometers and could function as a sniper in its own right. The Republic had whole armies capable of adopting sniper tactics, so why didn't the Jedi generals just have their men hide in the hills and obliterate incoming droid armies with sniper fire? The Republic's rapid response combat dogma applies here, but there's another factor in this as well. Oftentimes, droid armies just didn't have good sniper targets. The Separatists routinely used central control computers to coordinate entire armies at once, meaning that even if individuals were taken out, droids could still fight effectively as long as their control ship remained intact. Once those control ships went down, sniping tactical droids and organic commanders might have been a decent move, but by that point in the battle, it was usually a bit late to call in the snipers. Before that point, it was just more efficient to spray and pray. Why waste time choosing targets when you can just shoot in a general direction and have a solid chance of hitting something anyway? So, that's why certain Republic tactics were rare during the Clone Wars. But what do you think? Are there any other clone tactics you'd like to see us discuss? Let us know your thoughts about this interesting and kind of slept on topic in the comment section below.